Once upon a time, in a distant kingdom where winter stretched endlessly, snowflakes drifted like delicate white petals, blanketing the lush green hills and dense forests. One freezing winter afternoon, with snow falling thickly outside the window, the queen sat by a frame made of polished ebony wood, her sewing needle glinting in her hand. Suddenly, she pricked her finger on the needle, and 3 drops of deep crimson blood fell onto the pristine white snow outside. In a trembling whisper, she made her wish. "Oh, if only I had a child with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as this ebony wood." Not long after, her wish came true. A beautiful baby girl was born, with skin as smooth and white as fresh snow, lips as red as rose petals, and hair as glossy black as the midnight sky. They named her Snow White. Joy overflowed the castle, laughter echoing through the cold stone corridors. But that happiness was fleeting. The queen grew weaker, her face paling under the flickering candlelight, and she passed away forever, leaving the king in heartbroken grief. He clutched his tiny daughter to his chest, wandering the shadowy halls, his eyes red-rimmed with tears, his heart shattered amid the endless winter. A heavy gloom settled over the kingdom, as if the snow itself wept for their tragic fate. A year passed in lingering sorrow, and the king decided to remarry to bring some warmth back to the chilly palace. His new wife was a stunning beauty, with golden hair and eyes as sparkling as jewels, but beneath that allure lay a heart full of pride, selfishness, and cruelty. She turned the palace into her personal domain, where everything had to be perfect by her standards. In her private chamber, adorned with deep red tapestries and golden candles, she possessed a magic mirror, a shimmering treasure with a silver frame etched with dragons and phoenixes. Every morning, as the sun rose through the misty haze, she stood before the mirror, stroking her hair and asking in a shrill, smug voice, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" "You, my queen, are the fairest of them all," she smiled triumphantly. But time flew by like a bird on the wing. Snow White grew day by day, from an innocent child into a radiant young girl by the age of 7. Her face was like the dawn of spring, skin as smooth and white as porcelain, lips as red and full as cherries, and long black hair cascading down her back. She ran and played in the palace gardens, her laughter ringing out like bells. One day, when the queen asked the mirror again, the voice from the glass rang out coldly. "You are fair, my queen, 'tis true, but Snow White is fairer far than you." The queen's face drained of color, her eyes blazing with jealousy, her hands clenching into fists. A fire of hatred ignited in her heart, turning the palace atmosphere from warm to a brewing storm, where every glance she cast at Snow White was as sharp as a dagger. Unable to bear Snow White's ever-growing beauty, the queen summoned her loyal huntsman, a tall man with a weathered face and eyes filled with conflict. In a dimly lit room, lit only by flickering candles, she commanded him in an icy tone, "Take the girl deep into the forest. Kill her, and bring back her heart and liver as proof." The next morning, Snow White, with her clear eyes and innocent smile, followed him into the woods. Towering ancient trees stretched high, blocking out the sky, while yellowed leaves drifted down like confetti underfoot. When they paused by a massive oak tree, the huntsman drew his knife, its blade flashing in a rare shaft of sunlight. Snow White fell to her knees, tears streaming down her cheeks, her voice quivering as she begged, "Please spare me. I'll flee deep into the forest and never return home." "Run, poor child. Run far away and never come back." At that moment, a wild boar burst from the underbrush, its squeals echoing through the trees. The huntsman swiftly slew it and took its heart and liver back to the palace as false evidence. As for Snow White, Alone in the wild woods, she stumbled forward in utter terror. Darkness swallowed everything. Owl hoots echoed from afar, and glowing green eyes gleamed from the thickets. Exhausted and stumbling over rotten leaves, she caught sight of a quaint little cottage, smoke curling invitingly from its chimney, like a warm beacon amid the nightmare. Inside the tiny house, everything was small, but impeccably tidy. 7 round wooden chairs, 7 white porcelain plates edged in blue, 7 sparkling glass cups, and 7 little beds lined up neatly under the thatched roof. Snow White, her stomach growling with hunger, took a bite from each loaf of bread on the table, sipped from each cup, and then collapsed onto the 7th bed, which fit her perfectly, offering a rare sense of safety amid the fear. As night fell, the 7 dwarfs, brave miners with silver-white beards, sun-tanned faces, and radiant smiles, returned home after a long day digging ore in the deep, echoing caves. They sang a cheerful tune, their picks and shovels clinking over their shoulders, their footsteps pattering along the misty path. But as they pushed open the door, an odd atmosphere filled the air. "Someone sat in my chair," cried the first, surprised. "Someone's eaten my bread," frowned the second. "Someone's in my bed," whispered the 7th, his heart racing with curiosity. They lit torches, the golden light revealing Snow White asleep, her face as lovely as a moonlit painting. The dwarfs stood frozen, their eyes wide with wonder and affection. "Oh, what a beautiful girl!" The next morning, Snow White awoke in panic, her heart thumping as 7 little faces surrounded her. But the dwarfs, with warm voices and kind smiles, listened to her tale, from the pain of losing her mother to the terror of the deep woods. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but the dwarfs wiped them away with their rough hands, their hearts melting with compassion. "Stay with us, dear one," they said, their voices full of hope. "But promise to keep the house tidy." Snow White nodded, her first smile in days blooming on her lips, bringing the feeling of finding a second family amid the lonely mountains. Back at the palace, the queen consulted the mirror again, and its verdict struck like a blade. "Snow White lives with the 7 dwarfs beyond the mountain, fairer than you by far." She trembled with rage, her face twisting in the flickering candlelight. The first time, she disguised herself as a ragged peddler woman, her back hunched, carrying a bundle of colorful laces. She trudged through the forest, leaves crunching underfoot, until she reached the dwarf's cottage. "Fine laces for sale, strong and pretty," she called in a shrill, feigned voice. Snow White, forgetting the warning, opened the door, her eyes lighting up with curiosity. The old woman smiled slyly. "Let me lace your bodice for you, it'll make you even prettier." She pulled the laces tighter and tighter, until Snow White gasped for air, her face paling as she collapsed like a broken doll. The queen cackled with wicked delight and fled back to the palace, triumph surging through her veins. But as evening fell, the dwarfs returned to find Snow White motionless, their hearts twisting in agony. They cut the laces, and she gulped in air, awakening with wide, frightened eyes. "Never open the door while we're away," they warned sternly yet worriedly, embracing her like doting fathers. Unwilling to give up, the queen asked the mirror once more and failed again. She crafted a stunning poisoned comb and disguised herself a second time, luring Snow White with honeyed words. As the comb touched her hair, the poison spread, and she crumpled to the polished wooden floor, limp as a rag. The dwarfs returned just in time, pulling out the comb, and she awoke amid building fear, tears streaming down her face. "Be careful, our dear child," they pleaded.
The third time, the mirror's judgment drove the queen mad. She crafted a perfect apple, half white and harmless, half red and deadly, gleaming in the sunlight. Disguised as a humble farm wife, she knocked. "Good apples for sale, sweet and crisp." Snow White hesitated, but the woman bit the white half, convincing her to take the red. The poison surged, and she fell, her eyes closing forever, her face still serene in sleep. The queen laughed in victory, returning to the palace with dark satisfaction. When the dwarfs came home, they wailed in despair at the sight, their sobs echoing through the mountains. They tried everything, kissing her cheeks, calling her name, but to no avail. Her body remained fresh, her cheeks rosy as peach blossoms, as if magic preserved her from decay. In heartbroken sorrow, they crafted a transparent glass coffin, engraved with golden letters reading, "Snow White, the beautiful princess," and placed it atop a high mountain peak, where winds howled and white clouds drifted lazily. Day and night they kept vigil, singing sad lullabies, tears falling endlessly, a pall of mourning hanging like eternal winter. One autumn day, as golden leaves rained down like confetti, a prince from a neighboring kingdom rode through the forest on a hunt. Following his hound's baying, he wandered into the valley, where the glass coffin shimmered in the sunday. Peering through the crystal, he beheld Snow White, her beauty, a ray of light that pierced his heart, leaving him breathless. "I cannot live without her. Please, let me take the coffin. I will cherish her as my most precious treasure." As the prince's attendants carried the coffin away, they stumbled over a root, jolting it. The lodged apple piece dislodged from Snow White's throat. She opened her eyes, sighing softly. "Where am I?" The prince knelt, taking her hand, his voice trembling with joy. "You are safe, my love. Come with me, and be my bride." The wedding was celebrated grandly across the kingdom. Flags fluttered wildly, bells pealed through the skies, and the people cheered with delight. Snow White, in a resplendent white and gold gown, stood beside the prince, her face glowing with happiness. But the queen, still clinging to her vanity, asked the mirror one last time, "Who is the fairest?" The mirror replied, "The young queen Snow White is fairer than you." In a fury, she stormed to the wedding, but justice awaited. Red-hot iron shoes were brought forth, forcing her to wear them and dance until exhaustion. Her face contorted in agony, until she collapsed at last, darkness swallowing her cruelty. From then on, Snow White lived happily with her prince, becoming a kind and gentle queen, beloved by all her people. Snow White and her prince lived happily ever after. Thank you for watching Brick Fairy Tales, where fairy tales come alive through magical bricks. Like, share, and subscribe for more enchanting stories.